Larry sent in his figurine that he made, Mr. Foot, and it's a Bigfoot sculpture. And he asked me if he thought he'd be able to cast it. And I told him that I thought it was a pretty complicated piece, and I recommended that he break it into pieces, specifically that he remove the arms. So he went ahead and did that, took the arms off, and now we have a figurine that's going to be much simpler and much easier to cast. But I told him at the time, and he fully acknowledged that what I said was true, that he didn't design this piece for casting. He made it, it was fun, he sculpted it, he had a good time, came up with a fun piece, but it has issues that make it difficult to cast. And you've heard me say it before, I'm going to say it again. If you want to be successful molding and casting an object, you've got to design the object for the process of molding and casting. This is not designed for that. It has issues. So what we need to do before we make the mold is we're going to go through and we're going to fix some of the issues. A very important issue, and one that is an immediate problem, are the teeth. He has teeth hanging down in there, and he has space behind those teeth, and there's no way that you're going to get rubber in there, get them out, cast them, you're going to catch bubbles, you're going to have all kinds of problems. So that's going to have to be changed. There are areas where there are, again, it's difficult to see, but he has hair hanging down and he's trapping really fine spaces, like right there. He's trapping really fine spaces behind the hair. Same with the hair here. He's got space trapped behind it. That just doesn't work because that creates long, thin, flimsy sections of rubber that are very, very difficult to pull out. You know, once you're pouring resin around them, they tend to stick in there and they tend to break off. And now you've got chunks of rubber sticking into your casting. So you don't want any area where you're creating these long, thin webs of rubber that will break off in the casting. So we're going to fix those. So we're going to go through and fix a variety of things. Same thing, he's got these little ear tufts, whatever you want to call them, eyebrow tufts, are a little flimsy, and they're going to be a real problem in terms of catching bubbles. We're going to go over the model. We're going to make some minor modifications to it. I'm not going to re-sculpt it in any significant way because this isn't a sculpting channel. The hair is another problem. It's just a billion bubbles waiting to happen, but we are going to pressure cast it. So hopefully we'll be able to eliminate most of the bubbles by using pressure. Larry did what I asked him to do, and that was to break the arms into separate pieces. And even these pieces have issues because they're complex. This is a fairly complex shape, and whenever I get a shape in, the first thing I do is I turn it in space and I imagine it as a hollow vessel, as a hollow shape. And I imagine the resin flowing down in, and I want to see the path that the resin's going to take, just using gravity to go down to all parts and fill this part up and rise up. And then I want to know, well, as it rises, where's it going to catch air? So a lot of it is just strictly about the orientation of the part in space. I'm visualizing this piece as it's going to hang in space while I'm pouring the resin in, and it's filling and the air is moving out. And that's how I decide where I'm going to put the vents, where I put the sprue, how I hang in space, how I support it, what kind of box shape it's going to be in. Another question, a good question, is can we gang these into a single mold? Would that be an more effective use of rubber and pouring time if we could pour them and do them together? They're pretty complex, but maybe that's what we're going to do. What I ask myself is, how are these pieces going to be oriented in space when they're being filled with resin, when they're a hollow shape and they're being filled up with resin? How are they going to, what's the best way? Because obviously you don't want to do something where you have lots of points sticking up, lots of places, because if you oriented it like this, each and every one of these fingers would need vents coming off it. You'd have a forest of vents. You don't want to do that. You want to do it so the gravity fills, the vast majority of the piece just fills naturally with gravity, and then put what little venting you need to let the air out as the resin fills. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to design these mold cases, we're going to build them, we're going to pour rubber around them, and we're going to do the arms first. And you might ask, why am I doing the arms first? I like to have the part that's going to attach to the body done first, because if I have this as a piece of plastic instead of soft, this actually is monster clay. It's pretty hard, but instead of having this in clay, I like to have this in plastic, because then I can use this to sculpt, to finish and kind of finalize the sculpt of the body, so that when I get it into place, I don't have the issues with gaps and problems that I've got right now. I can use the plastic part to make sure that it fits really well to the body. And then when I cast the body, the two pieces are going to fit together really nice, and he's going to have a lot less work at gluing the things together and doing the sculpting of the fur and doing all the stuff you're going to have to do to get a finished piece. It's all about, good molding and casting is all about minimizing the amount of work that you've got to do once you have cast pieces and you're going to assemble it into the finished model. We're going to start with the arms. So I've already done a few things to get prepared. One is I shortened the tenons. I shortened these little parts sticking out of the arm. You see that little part right there? That's sticking out. If it sticks out really far, it makes a really correspondingly deep hole in the body, and that's no good. First of all, it's completely unnecessary, and second of all, it's a big flap of rubber that can break off easy when it gets pulled out of the resin. So you don't need a big long peg to index where the arm goes. Just the short peg is going to do it. The work of holding the arm on is going to be done by the adhesive that glues the whole thing together. I took some oil clay and I smoothed out this surface, just because it's a lot faster working with super soft oil clay than it is working with monster clay. Did it on both sides. So we are almost ready to go. Now you know why I keep a giant collection of sprues and funnels laying around, because they come in handy, and I'm going to use these to be the funnel and the sprue for these arms, and they're going to lay on there something very similar to that. And we'll need to drill that hole. I got the drill going, and we can do that job. It's quite a steep angle. I don't think I've ever drilled into monster clay before, so let's see how this works. There's something going on in there. That's interesting. All right. Keep drilling in there. I'm hitting something hard. Maybe armature wire. All right, we'll see what I'm hitting in there. I'm hitting something in there, so I don't want to mess it up. I'd rather modify the sprue than mess. So yeah, I'm going to have to shorten it. Anyway, it's going to go in there something like that, only it's going to be quite a bit shorter. But the angle's not bad. I think I'm probably hitting some armature in there, so I will fix that. Let's do this one. You know, whenever a client or someone gives you a sculpture, you're really working with the unknown. I don't know what's in these parts, so I'm just going with a wing and a prayer here, more or less. Same thing, I'm hitting something in there. But that one went in deeper. Pull that out. Wow. All right. I think that might have worked out okay. Let's see how that one fits in there. Yeah, that one's better. That one's not bad at all. So it's going to look something like that. See how that's going to fit in there? Very nice. It's going to fit in just about like that. And what I have done is I have marked out, we'll put this one aside and I'll work on that in a minute. I've marked out a right angle so I can kind of get a sense of how big this box is going to be. And I think we're looking at around, I'm going to be generous because I also have to account for the thickness of the wood. It's going to be about, I'm going to say, a good solid 3 inches solid that way by, same thing, I'm going to need to allow for the thickness of the base of the wood. So I'm going to go with 5.5. So we've got 3 by 5.5, and then the depth we figure out. Let's see, what have I got? I want to have a good generous size. I don't want to make the starved little mold. What is that? About 3.5, 3.25, 3.5. Let's call it 3.5. I'd rather have it be a little big. I can always cut it down. If I assemble it together and I feel like the mold box is a little big, I can always cut it down. Okay, so we know what we're doing. Let's go cut out the parts on the table saw. We'll put the thing together. You can just see I just cut some foam most recently. So now I got a snowstorm of foam. Great. Super. Let's see if we can get rid of some of that. Sorry about the snowstorm. We'll live with it. Set the table saw to 4. Beautiful. Okay. Set the table saw to 3.25. All right, let's check it. 4 or 3.25. Beautiful. Let's cut the 3.5 since the table saw is already set up for 3.5. Let's cut this. This is just a cabinet laminate material. It's already finished. Beautiful. Don't have to wax it. Got this. I scrounged that. Nick it off square and straight. Here we want 3.5. Couple of those. Okay. All right. There's the long side. Let's set this to 5.5 inches because we know our box. 5.5 inches tall. Let's do this first. I need to cut some strips of wood, so let's do those first. We'll set that to 3/4 of an inch, and let's rip these up. Rip our strips out of that. Those. Now we can set to 5.5. That's the height we need. And we can cut these. Nick these off at 5.5 too. In order to do that, let's do this. Let's go grab a 1, 2, 3 block. Easy peasy. And let's set the mark to 8.5. And we'll put our 1, 2, 3 block right in there. That's a 3-inch length, so that'll serve as our gauge. And away we go. Quick and easy, that should be 5.5. Let's look and see. 15 to 20.5, 5.5. We're gonna need 4 of those. Just don't really have enough to hold on to. Not loving this. Let me do this. Let me do it this way. Okay. Close enough for a government job. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Beauteous. This should give us all the pieces we need to make this mold case. Okay, so to make our box, we're going to glue these strips on there like that. Just like that. So let's just do the one. I'll do one on camera, and the rest of them I'll do off camera. Dip into the old glue pot. Very high tech. Smear some glue on there. Beautiful. Line it up. Get it on there. How flush is it? Not very. Let's get that flush. Nice and flush. Flush on the end. Put a clamp in the middle to hold it. Put clamps on. Make sure that when you tighten the clamps, things don't go moving all over the place. We want these things to be reasonably tight because then there's less chance of leakage. That's the only reason we're taking time to make them pretty. This is not cabinetry. It's just mold boxes. But I would like this surface to be flush because that means I'm going to have a leak-proof mold. So that's it. I'm just going to go around, glue these on. And when I get those all done, we'll put the mold case together. Here's the case all assembled, and right now I've just got it held together with 4 of these binder clips. Now what I do at this point is I use the box to help me position the parts inside the box. I want a good solid 1/4 inch of clearance around, all the way around. And once they're tacked to the base, I'll be able to put in the vents and finish up the funnels and the sprues, and we'll do that now. Now that I know where they go, I want to mark the base so that I can put them back because I'm going to have to make some, I'm going to need to be able to put them back in place. And this is just kind of an estimate, so I'm marking it with a pen. I'm kind of estimating where it's going to go back. And I do that so that I'll give it its final positioning when I'm ready. But this just sort of helps me to get it roughly back into position. I have my Fordham wax carver going. I'm going to start calling it the Fordham wax carver because every time I use it, 12 people ask me what that thing is. That's a Fordham wax carver. It's not a sponsor, just the tool I use. And what I want to do now is I want to mark the sides. So I'm going to crank the heat on this, and I'm going to mark this side with wax, and I'm going to write the letter P in wax right there. Now this letter P doesn't have to be fancy. It's not calligraphy. It's just so I know which one of these sprues is going to be my main pouring spout. Over here is the vent side. So I'm going to mark it as the vent side. Not pretty, but enough for me to be able to know what I'm doing. Now I can take these off, and I know that this is going to be my pouring one because I'm going to keep it on the same side. I don't want to get confused. I don't want to get messed up. And what I want to do is I want to make this. This is going to be my main pouring side. So what I need to do is I need to enlarge and connect these vents. And that's what we're going to use wax for. So I'm going to connect that together. I'm going to make this connection stronger. Welding in this sprue into the model, because it's got to be strong enough to withstand the pour. I also feel like, because this is going to be my main pouring side, I have two parts. The basic strategy here is I'm going to pour primarily down one side, and I'll show you why when I get there. But I'm going to use the fingers as a bridge between the two, and I'm going to pour. The resin is going to fall down this sprue, and it's going to fill these fingers, and it's going to go across to the other side and start to fill the other hand. And I'm going to let that fill for a while before I continue the pour. You'll see it all in action, and it'll make sense to you, I hope. Because this is a complicated thing, is I'm trying to kind of eliminate as much as possible the number of vents that I'm going to require. And it's almost impossible to do that, because the thing is going to require a lot of vents. No matter what I do, the thing was going to want vents because it is so complex in terms of its directionality. So that is what I'm doing. Let me break out my blue sprue wax. They call it sprue wax because jewelers call these things sprues because they use them as sprues. I call it vent wax. So now what I need to do is, this little thing right here is going to catch a bubble, except it's not going to catch a bubble, because I'm going to put some sticky wax on there. I'm going to turn it into a sprue. That is going to be one of the sprues that will allow resin to flow into this model. Let's see how I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to cut this here like that and link that over to there. Okay, well, let's fill that in. So on this side, there's going to be a lot of channels, or more channels, acting as inlet sprues. All three of the things that I'm installing now are all inlet sprues. I kept a blob of oil clay in the hot box so it's nice and soft. And one of the things that I would like to also do is to build out this sprue with some more clay. Build out this funnel. I want this funnel to be pretty beefy because I want this to fill fast. I need to be able to pour a lot of material down this funnel. So I want a pretty beefy sprue on this side. And the quickest and easiest way to do that, I could do it with wax and take quite a while to do it, but I can also do it quicker just with clay, as you see me doing here. Why? Because I'm going to be filling, in effect, both of them from this one side. What I've done is I've arranged these pieces and marked them where they're going to go on this base. So I'm putting a nice big blob of sticky wax on there. It's getting nice and stuck on there. And we'll put that in place. Just like that. I'm going to push it into place. Okay, so that one's in place. Now let's do the other one. All right, so we'll get the sticky wax on this one. Just blob it on sticky wax. So that's going to stick on there good. Okay, like that. And let's put this in place. And it should go right in about like this. See, I marked the base with wax so that I could put the pieces back into position very close to where I wanted them to be, which they are. I'm going to flow some wax down around the base to really weld those funnels on there. So I'm going to weld these bases on with this blue sprue wax. That's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to make the connection a lot stronger to the base, and it's going to let less rubber leak underneath the base. That edge really worried me about catching bubbles. Remember, it's on the bottom now, but when I pour the rubber, everything's upside down. So everything's gonna be flowing that way. So this was an edge that could just catch a tremendous amount of bubbles. So I made a kind of a custom blade-shaped thin fin of a vent that connected. So this is gonna be my pour entrance, and this is gonna be mostly my vent, although I can also pour down the center spout and let the vents here do the work. This thumb is an obvious problem. Remember, these pieces are going to be hanging like this in space. So now you see the thumb pointing up. That's a gigantic bubble catcher. So that's one of the first things that we're going to have to vent. And also, when we do that venting, that's going to tell us where the cut's going to be. So I'm going to come in about here, position that vent right there. I want to make sure that that vent is well welded to the base. By the way, this base is just a block of wood. I did not beeswax it. All I did was cover it in packing tape. I got the exact same issue over here. I'm going to want to put a vent in line with this vent out about here. So that's going to be another cut. Let's attach this vent to the base. Okay, so now this is hard enough on this side to kind of position it, and then we're going to build it up. It's better to have too much plastic and carve it down than it is to have voids that you have to fill, because it's more work to have to fill them. I'm going to put a vent there, right into there, just like that. See how I put that vent on there? I'm going to go ahead and finish all of this stuff, and then I'll come back to you and show you how I designed all of the vents and all of the connections between the parts. All right, let's take a tour of what I've done. As you can see, there's a lot of vents on this piece, and there has to be, because remember, it's going to hang like this. This is how it's going to fill. So the resin's going to drop to the bottom, and it's got to be able to get out. Those thumbs are the big problem, and some other problems are this back edge of hair. I worried about that, catching a lot of bubbles in here. Same with on the other side. I worried about this, I don't know if you see it, this back edge of hair catching a lot of bubbles. I worried about catching a bubble at the very top in there. So what's going to happen is, I'm primarily going to pour down this side. The side I marked with a P is going to be my main pour side. It's going to fill this hand, and it's also going to cross resin over up into this finger. That takes care of this finger that would need a vent in there. That'll fill, and that will fill and fill these fingers. Now, I'm very concerned about this finger catching a lot of bubbles. So how I'm going to solve that is I'm going to be doing a lot of rocking. When I cast this piece, I'm going to fill it partially, rock, and hope that I'm going to be able to release out. This particular finger is the big problem. But if I originally was going to bridge these two fingers together, but then I'm creating a real cage in there that I'm not crazy about creating. If I can't get that to fill out, I could cut it later. I generally don't like to cut molds. Cut like vents or make any cut modifications to molds, because I don't think it works as well. Any way you look at it, it's a complex piece, but I think it's going to fill okay. But it's Thursday afternoon and we are out of time. You guys are going to be watching this movie tomorrow. Next week, we're going to assemble that box we built, fill it with rubber, and pour some resin, and see if that tangle of sprues and vents and whatnot can make decent parts. Thanks for watching. I will see you next week.